The question is, in what way do I believe race influences creative expression in general and in my own expression in particular? Race is an identity. An identity would seem to be arrived at by the way in which the person faces and uses his or her experience. I never assume to speak for others. What I am trying to do in my art is what James Baldwin once said about his writing, and that is, I interpret and make clear that no society has the right to smash the social contract and be exempt from the consequences. And the consequences are chaos for everybody in society, black and white. He also said, the reason people think it's important to be white is that they think it's important not to be black. That's deep. It's my job to artistically bear witness to the truth, as well as the systemic assaults by sanctioned bearers of cruelty and death. I came into my own during the 1960s. I was a young housewife and mother living in the suburbs of Boston, but in my head and in my heart, I was in the South. I was a free writer, a cultural warrior, documenting the strength, dignity, and beauty of people dying while struggling for justice. Today, when I approach my easel, I am on the front lines, still.
In my experiences in creating art and art that I had seen, it tends to be very limited in the scope of how we are represented as a people. Generally, we're slaves, or we're downtrodden, or you see depictions of poverty. It's very rare in the scope of how Black art, where you see things or artists experimenting and showcasing Black folks in a positive situation. I believe the artist has a definite responsibility to be seen and heard through the trying times such as this, to be spokespeople for our people.
As a mover, I can experience everything I think and feel, and these can be portrayed to audience members to also initiate thoughts and feelings about specific topics. Specifically in this moment, we're experiencing a lot of racial and social injustice, and that makes me think about myself as an artist, and more prominently a Black artist. My identity as an African American will always influence my impulses and my intuition and my creativity. It's just who I am, and that goes for any artist. I feel that all artists have a responsibility to reflect the times and share the stories of the human experience from multiple perspectives so that we all can be more tolerant and understanding and hopefully promote growth and change.
One of the biggest issues I felt was, as a performer, I saw that my fellow African American friends and people of color were not getting the same opportunities that others were. And I kept wondering why. Being able to help to make sure these stories get told from the other side became more important to me than performing in front of people and for people. It became more important, and it is more important for me to make sure our stories are told and make sure African Americans and people of color are being seen on stage, and that we are being able to produce shows, and we're being able to be on production staff, and we're being in the room where it all happens.
Art is a political act, and regardless of whether you're painting rainbows or flowers, as a Black artist, carve a space for yourself within a predominantly white space, which is the art world, is a political act within itself. And there's a lot of racism and implicit bias that is evident within the art world. And I think it's really important that we, as Black artists, carve a space for ourselves and allow our culture and our knowledge to inform the way that we create art.
We are in a moment. This is a very critical time, and it's a very critical opportunity, okay? This is a turning point, is an opportunity to really focus together, all right? So all artists and all people, it's our responsibility, I believe, to use our artistry for healing's sake. We cannot assume that, oh, I'm an artist and I'm free to do what I want to do. Yeah, but really, it's not really true, because you're always going to be perceived by other people. And that's always going to affect things. So no matter what you think you have, the bottom line is you actually end up having a responsibility, regardless of whether you accept it or not.
I love the fact that dance has the ability to connect people, to heal people, to evoke feeling, thought, promote change, and cultivate evolution. Life is lived in motion, and I wish that we would move more together and share this human experience.
I think it's vital for that message, for that type of protest, using those vehicles to be seen. I also think it's vitally important that us as a people support the Black artists, and it doesn't matter what the genre is, if it's visual arts, if it's dance, if it's film. We need to show up, we need to support in numbers, and we need to encourage the more creation and more protest and more energy in those efforts.
African American artists and people of color have a responsibility to tell the stories. I have a responsibility to Breonna Taylor. I have a responsibility to Harriet Tubman. I have a responsibility to those countless people that we don't know, whose names we've never heard because their lives are cut short. We have a responsibility to keep their lives relevant. We have a responsibility to tell stories that make sure we don't repeat the past. And we have a responsibility to ensure that our stories are positive stories, and ensure that we are telling our stories, to ensure that we make sure that the stories of African American and people of color get told by us.
Do Black artists have a role or responsibility to be seen and heard in the freedom and social racial justice journey? If so, what is the role of responsibility? That's a serious question. As long as white American and European multi-billionaires control the primary and secondary markets of the art world, it will be hard for Black art to become important, or on both fronts, without the advocacy of major white American and European dealers, collectors, and auction houses working together to make that happen in a big way. Currently, they are not. I believe our responsibility as career-committed artists is to do the work and stay alive. Do not consider fame nor fortune. It may or may not come. Use social media and be your own press agent. What is happening for the African American artists or artists of color is Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Social media is the game changer for us all. I Cannot Breathe is not solely about the sanctioned murder of a Black man. Till now, it has been about the struggle to breathe from the bottom of some slave ship. I believe that we, the folk, my people, we have not taken a real deep breath in our collective lives. Period.